Just kind of was doing that. Father, I thank you for what you're doing here and how you reveal yourself, and that you are Jehovah Sneaky. Just when we think we got you figured out, you pull a fast one. You did it on the disciples. You did it constantly, Lord, with the prophets. And you try to do it today with us. So help us be open to the new thing you want to do here. And we just submit what we've got here, Father. Make use of it or just trash it. I don't care. It's about you. In the name of Jesus. Well, welcome you all to a new month. Heshbon is the name of it. It's the 8th month. We're about to cross over actually Saturday night, but I want to give you the cue up now. I do want to remind everybody, please keep praying for the team in Cuba. Okay? They're down there and they're in some remote hinterlands. They had some real challenges getting there on the plane. There were a lot of delays, crew issues, mechanical, etc., but they're there. So now, I'm not sure the most recent status, so we'll keep that posted. And thank you, too, for praying for Kim. She is up right now in Lake Placid with a dear friend. And it's just good for her. She just needs to be unplugged, right? And just get a complete breakaway. And that time away will be restoring and refreshing. So, okay. Well, you know, we keep getting more people that come online, and I don't like to go all the way back and try to connect all the dots. But I just always find new creative ways. Can you tell, this is a woman's or a man's hands? Woman's hands, yeah. And you know what? And as a matter of case, this is the bride's hands and this is the groom's hands. Now, in a parallel, who is the bride? Right, that's the bride of Christ. Who is the groom? Okay, here's part of the issue. You know, we kind of feel like we got our own time, thank you very much. And he's go, you know what? I got my time, thank you. Is this one of the issues of those of you being married, right? You understand you have differences in how you perceive time. Like when it's time to leave, right? You learn to adjust over time, right? You learn how to make it, and so ultimately you kind of come in sync. But the Lord has a perception of time that is in His Word, and He just wants us to plug in to align with it, right? He just keeps giving me another analogy. And when He brought Moses and the children, just before actually, He brought them out of Egypt, He says, okay, Moses, recount your days starting now. This will be your first month. And anyway, it shifted a lot of things around, so we track with God with the times and seasons. And the reason being, how many of you watched a movie where they go, now synchronize your watches? Yeah. You remember that? That was kind of always the thing when they were going to do something and it had to be very precise. That's what we do with you guys on a regular basis, okay? When we come into a new month, we want you to synchronize your watch. And not your watch even this way, but your watch. Yes. What are you watching for? What are you paying attention to, right? Because we all know that if we were near the 4th of July, you would expect some sort of very patriotic thing because you think, well, that's in sync with the time, right? Or whatever, Memorial Day, and you think that. Well, God's got His own thing. He says, this is what I want you to watch for. And why is that? Okay, this comes right out. Can you see what that is that He's offering up? What is it? Yeah, what is it? Hourglass, right? So it represents time. Present yourself as a living sacrifice. So who will read this out loud for me? Loudly.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It will be health to your flesh and strength to your bones.
Good. Okay. And then from the front here, Jackie, this part.
Honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruits of all of your increase. So your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will overflow with new wine.
So what Israel would do every time they got into a new month is they would gather to hear the word from the prophet. They would honor the Lord with a first fruits offering of the month, of their increase. And it aligns with this. And you all know these verses well, don't you? And the first fruits of all your increase. You have now been just given another month that's coming up on you. That's an increase. So we take the first portion of that, the first time we're gathering together in the new month, and we bring it before the Lord. We bring praise, you bring tithes, offerings, you bring a first fruit gift to the Lord, and with that, your barns filled with plenty, your vats overflow with new wine. Okay? And we know that it's more immaterial. How many of you need your time increased? Okay? You need to find better use. Do you ever have times when that happens, when you're really effective, and it's just like it works really well, and other times it's not. When you come here, part of what we do is we're offering up our first fruits of our time, saying, Lord, we're going to honor you. We're going to hear what you're saying through your word, and we want to align with that. So right now, we're in an 8th month, right? Just so you know, it's an 8th month. And we're in what year? It's an 8th year, 5778 in the biblical calendar. Also, we're about to come 2018, that 8 again. So it's the 8th year in the first decade with this century, but in the 7th decade in the year 5700. I won't go into all of that. We just use it as a prophetic trigger. 8 is a number of new beginnings, right?
Yes.
Okay, why is that? Oh, come on now. Come on. You've been tracking this longer. We've had several, at least a month, right, to talk about this. When do you get circumcised? On the 8th day, right? When was Jesus raised from the dead? On the 8th day, because he'd gone through a week, right? Yes, it was the first day of the week, but what was it in relation to the other? It was the 8th day, okay? It's when the priests that went through all of their ritual to get cleansed for the temple, is on the 8th day they emerged again and again and again. And by the way, you've also got this het. That's the Hebrew letter for 8. It's a picture of a gate or a doorway that you go through. The 8th tribe, because when God reordered time, he also reordered the tribes, and he said, okay, the 8th tribe is now Manasseh, so we pay attention to that. And the Noah 8 is a new beginning. Noah is also one of the characters that is tied into this month. This is the month when the flood started, and this is the month a year and 10 days later when it stops. Okay, when the waters subside. It rains for 40 days and 40 nights, but then the boat is in motion, and they're in that model for a year and 10 days. And so it's a start and an end of the ark days, and it's a gateway sign. Anybody getting this? Right? Okay, a lot of you guys have been tracking with this. If not, go back and watch some of those again.
8 days after creation.
8 days after, pardon me?
After the Sabbath rest, after God did creation, the 8th day is the beginning.
The beginning. He starts again. Good, good. You'll find it over and over again. Okay, we won't go through all the connections there because I want to try to get you into the gist of it. Simplify to semperfi, right? So, forget and remember. Here's what I want to just give you. Forgetting faith was the tag. How many of you saw the ping? Okay, how many of you wondered what on earth I was talking about? Okay, I'm not saying to forget your faith. But I'm saying there's a forgetting faith where your faith allows you to forget things.
Yes.
Here's just what we forget so we remember. Now I'm gonna segue into something completely off, and don't worry, you'll get it, I think. But the whole time when I went down on this little mini retreat, I kept feeling like this movie Seabiscuit, I had to take it with me. How many of you have seen that? Okay. It's an amazing movie. And it really deals with during the pre and post-Depression era of America. And it's based on a true story about this horse named Seabiscuit. But the movie really centers around 3 men who've gone through a great deal of grief. Mr. Howard, Tom Smith, and Reb Pollard. Reb Pollard is the jockey who gets basically abandoned by his family in the Depression time because he has a gift to ride horses, and they see that he can actually make a living doing that, and they can't sustain him. Tom Smith is an old horse trainer who's been basically kicked out of everything he can, and he's just living off the scrubs and the outside edges. Charles Howard was a successful businessman who then lost a boatload during the crash, but even more importantly lost his son in a car crash at the age of, I think he was 10 or 12. But Mr. Howard has this amazing heart of the Father. And it's about restoring. And he decides to go ahead and get a racehorse kind of on a whim. And he finds this old cowboy out there, Tom Smith, and finds something so redemptive in him that he calls him up to be part of that team. And in the midst of that, they find this jockey, and they found this broken old, I don't want to say broken old, but this really problematic horse called Seabiscuit. Okay? Now, I'm going to read you part of the script and just show you some pictures. I have a clip here, but because of copyright laws, I have to be able to download the clip because of the replay and everything. So it's limited to part of it, and this first part, it couldn't do it. So let me try to be sort of the narration for you here on this part of the movie. How many of you seen it? How many of you not seen it? Okay. Well, it's worth seeing. It's not an easy thing to watch at first. So this is talking about Tom. The first time he saw Seabiscuit, the colt was walking through the fog at 5 in the morning. Smith would later remark that the horse looked right through him, as if to say, "What the hell are you looking at? Who do you think you are?" He was a small horse, barely 15 hands. He was hurting, too. There was a limp in his walk, a wheezing when he breathed. Smith didn't pay attention to that. He was looking the horse in the eye. He was the son of Hardtack, sired by the mighty man of war, but the breeding did little to impress anyone at Claiborne Farm. Get rid of him! At 6 months, he was shipped off to the legendary trainer Sonny Fitzsimmons, who over time developed a similar opinion of him. The judgment wasn't helped by his gentle nature. Where his sire had been a fierce, almost violent competitor, Seabiscuit took to sleeping for huge chunks of the day, enjoyed lolling for hours under the boughs of the juniper tree. His other great talent was eating. Though half the size of other colts, Seabiscuit could frequently eat twice as much. Fitzsimmons decided the horse was lazy and felt sure he could train the obstinance out of him. "I want you to hit him as many times as you can over a quarter of a mile." When he didn't improve, they decided the colt was incorrigible. They made him a training partner to better horses, forcing him to lose head-to-head duels to boost the confidence of the other animal. By the time he was 3 years old, Seabiscuit was struggling in 2 cheap claiming races a week. Soon he grew as bitter and angry as his sire Hardtack had been. He was sold for the rock-bottom price of $2,000. And of course, it all made sense. Champions were large. They were sleek. They were without imperfection. When they finally did race him, he did just what they trained him to do. He lost. Now, that's the background, I believe historically based, of Seabiscuit. And in the midst of that, the trainer sees something in him and convinces the couple to buy him. And they find Red Pollard to ride him. And so this is the first time that this couple has seen this horse run. And I want you to watch this and hear these lines.
Seems pretty fast.
Yeah, in every direction. Well, he's so beat up, it's hard to tell what he's like. I just can't help feeling they got him so screwed up running in a circle, he's forgotten what he was born to do. He just needs to learn how to be a horse again.
Well, how do you do that?
How far do you want me to take him?
Till he stops.
Okay. That seems like a pretty good ride.
Hope so.
That's it, boy. Yeah, all right. Let's see what you got, boy. Huh! 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 Woo! That's it, boss. That's
So, he's so beat up, it's hard to tell what he's like. These guys all needed a fresh start. They all needed a new beginning, right? And this is true of most people that we meet. Because of this line. I just can't help feeling they got him so screwed up running in circles, he's forgotten what he was born to do. What are your circles? And how is that diminishing what you were born to do? This is a month for new beginnings. Seabiscuit is about new beginnings from people that pretty broken up, right? And then this line, he just needs to learn how to be a horse again. So, many of are just so beat up, it's hard to be sure what you're really like. And you know what? This is not just about individuals, it's about entire institutions. The enemy's been so busy running the church in circles, we've forgotten what we were born to do. Just has to remember how to be followers of Jesus again, right? Instead, we're just circling round and round and round. And the world's like, that's broken down, that can't do anything. The circles spin, right? Pretty good illustration of it. And it's just the fact that it's so long. So talk to me. What are some of the things that circle you around? What are the things that hook us? What are the distractions? Talk to me. Family. Okay, family. Now, what about family? What?
Meeting needs.
Meeting needs. Okay. Families, things going sideways. Relationships going sideways. Health. Hospitals. Okay. What else? What runs you in circles? Work, okay, work, blah, 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 right? And you even know that there's key things you need to do for work, but so often you get run around in circles, you can't even do the core things, right? 90% of your value is actually in about 10% of what you do. Okay? But most of your time gets absorbed by that, just busy stuff, busy stuff, busy stuff. What else? Work, family, what else?
Life itself.
Life itself. Can you be a little more specific? What about it? Health issues, paying the bills, the circles go, the circles go, the circles go. The reason that we want to look at this in this month, because some of the characters that are connected with this are Joseph, because the 8th tribe is Manasseh, who is Joseph's firstborn. And the most famous Manassite member of the tribe of Manasseh is Gideon. And then you got Noah. Is there a new start in Noah somehow in there? Okay. Were things running around a bit in circles? Not so much Noah, but the rest of the earth. And God says, okay, we got to do a new start here. We got to do a reset here. Okay. And we forget then what we were born to do. So God's got to pull us out and recalibrate. And this is a month for new beginnings. I like this for kind of a circle thing in there. Running around in circles for so long, then we're dire need of a new beginning. Anybody here want a new beginning? Yeah. Okay. And you know what? God doesn't just start you from scratch, though. He takes it from there and says, okay, new beginning. Right? Jesus was in the grave. He had lived 30-some years, right? But now new beginning, fresh life, right? Still bearing the scars of the last one, right? That amazed me. I got thinking the other day, okay, I wonder if it's just the holes in his hands and feet, or is his back all torn up with scars too? Right? Those are glory scars. Okay. You guys are being kind of somber here. I'm sorry. I don't want it to be quite this serious.
We're just trying to think.
Okay, you're just trying to think. Yeah. Well, that's always dangerous, you know. And some of my more vocal group are out of the country or out of the area right now. So, okay. So what about the life of Joseph?
Looks like mine.
Okay. Yeah. Does this kind of like, I found this was just a graph that I found. Right? I mean, his life, talk about something that seems like it's around in circles. How many of you got a chance to read some in Genesis 36? Let me just go through some of this, right? Because, okay. Oops, that's that one. 37, right? That's where it starts. There we go. Okay. This is a history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers. The lad was with the sons of Zilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. How's that for the young upstart? How's that going to go for family relationships, right? But he brought a bad report. Was it an accurate report? Most likely. Most likely, right? They were messing around, and he brings the report back. Oh, it's daddy's boy. Okay. How does that go with siblings? Any of you have a sibling who kind of would tattle on you? How did that work? Or were you one of those? Sorry. Okay, no. Nobody's willing to admit that. Okay. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a tunic of many colors. Right? Nothing worse than already having the favorite kid, but then he's got to show it off, right? And a tunic of many colors, what did that signify? Wealth. What else? That Joseph wasn't going to have to go out and do the normal work that the rest of the brothers are. This was a rank and prestige thing, even though he was younger. That's doing him real good. And then his brothers, when the brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Okay, so how's he doing so far? Okay, how do you find this balance with, yeah, dad loves me, I got this coat, but my brothers want to like, right? Can you imagine they couldn't speak peaceably to him? I can't swear in Hebrew, or I would probably lose a couple of words just so you could hear it. But I'm sure he had, to it, right? Now, of course, Joseph being as smart as he is, he's 17, he has a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. This is a guy who can't get out of his own way sometimes. So he said to them, "Please hear this dream which I have dreamed." Yeah. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf rose and also stood upright, and indeed your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf. And his brothers said to him, "Shall you indeed reign over us, or shall you indeed have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers and said, "Look, I have dreamed another dream." You know, for somebody who's got a lot of wisdom from God, he's awfully stupid in the flesh, right? Just shut up and keep your dreams to yourself, right? But you do know that God is letting all these things stir up, and there's a circular pattern that's developing for Joseph that he's going to get in, and God's going to have to reset him, right? So he told it to his father and his brothers. Then he dreamed another dream and said, "Look, I have dreamed another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bowed down to me." Now even dear old Dad's got it, right? And Dad says, "Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you?" And his brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." So he said to him, "Here I am." So great, right? The guys are far afield. They're probably 30 miles away. Dad wants to get a good report or find out what's going on, so he sends his spy out, right? Joseph. So, "Please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring back word to me." So he sent him out to the valley of Hebron and went to Shechem. Now a certain man found him, and there he was, wandering in the field. And the man asked, saying, "What are you seeking?" So he said, "I'm seeking my brothers. Please tell me where they are feeding their flocks." And the man said, "They departed from here, for I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. Now when they saw him afar off, even before he came near, they conspired against him to kill him. They said to one another, "Look, this dreamer is coming. Now therefore let us kill him and cast him into some pit, and we shall say, 'Some wild beast has devoured him.' We shall see what will become of his dreams." Yeah? You know the story, right? So, you know what happens? Do they kill him? No. Okay. They put him in a pit, right? And actually he's got an elder brother who tries to rescue him. Who is that? Reuben. But meanwhile, this Midianite tribe comes by, and one brother has a really bright idea. Do you know which one it was? Judah, which is really, I mean, you got to look at Jehovah sneaky, right? Judah, wait a minute, Judah's going to be later on the first tribe, but Judah's the one who volunteers, let's sell him to the Midianites. So Joseph goes from having this great coat, having this being the favorite of his dad, being down in the pit, and now sold into slavery and dragged off into Egypt. What happens then? Where are we? Okay, goes to Potiphar, right? So you're sold as a slave, not real great. Okay, now what happens though?
Great in Potiphar's house.
Okay, does great. Everything he touches, God favors, God favors, God favors. He goes on, okay, so that goes great forever, right? What happens? Yeah, he's got favor with everybody, including Potiphar's wife, which is not such a good thing. Because Potiphar wants favors from Joseph, right? And so what ends up happening? She haunts him day after day, and finally there's a time nobody's in the house. She grabs his cloak. He says, "No, I can't do this." Runs away and leaves his cloak. There's a big thing with Joseph and cloaks. You got to just track that sometime. Won't go to that. Okay? But now she gets it, and she goes to Potiphar and says, "Hey, your slave came in to mock me." So where's he get next? Down in the prison, right? Okay, so he's down there in the prison, and I can't imagine that's too nice a place. And what happens while he's there?
But he is the head of it.
But yeah, what happens over time?
Well, he's over everybody that's there.
Yeah, he has favor again, favor again, favor again. Okay, so he's there, and now what happens? Two guys get thrown into jail. Who is it? The butler and the baker, right? The B and the B, okay? And then what happens then? They have a dream. They have dreams, okay? And the butler has a good dream or a bad dream? Good dream, okay. And Joseph gives him the interpretation, says in 3 days, you're going to be restored. The baker's so excited about it. Hey, I want one of those words, right? Careful what you ask for. He gets a word in 3 days, your head's going to be lifted up from your shoulders. Both of your heads will be lifted up, yours will just keep going, right? Okay, that's really actually what the original language is in there. Okay, so, but he says something to the butler. What does he say? Remember me. Remember me. And of course, the butler, being so filled with gratitude for the proper accuracy of the interpretation, does what? Forgets. Does nothing, zip, nada, for how long?
2 years.
2 years. 730 days. So do you get this Joseph pattern? Okay, now I want you to just think back. You have 2 years now to sit in this prison. What would you be tempted to be bitter about? Give me some people that might come across your mind.
Potiphar's wife.
I'm sorry, what? Potiphar's wife. Okay, yeah, for lying about me. Okay, who else? The brothers for throwing me in the pit. Who else?
The butcher. I mean,
Maybe the dad. The dad sent me out in the first place. You know, I never would have been out there if dad hadn't sent me to go that. Okay, not only that, what about the guy in the field in Shechem who told him where the brothers are? You know, if I hadn't run into that guy, I would have gone back to dad and said, I don't know where they are. And I would have just been fat and happy at home. Instead, boom. Okay, who else?
the guy who forgot him.
The guy who forgot him, the butler. I was butler, right? Okay.
God for the dreams and himself for opening his mouth.
Okay, how stupid could I have been? God, why did you give me those dreams in the first place? Look where I am. I will never see my brothers again. That dream was so stupid. Do you know how far away they are? They're never going to come to Egypt. That's just not going to happen. Right? You've got to get ourselves into that place and understand the potential. We don't know what Joseph did, but would it be reasonable for any person in his position to go there? Okay. Blame himself, blame God, blame his dad, blame his brothers, blame Potiphar for believing.
Yeah.
What I was a faithful employee. How could you possibly believe this rat? So she's your wife. You should know better by now, right? And then, of course, the butler. Can't believe this. I told him what was going to happen. He's right up there next to the man who could change everything for me, and he forgets about him. But what's happening in the midst of all this process, right? This is like the 3 days in the grave before Jesus is raised. And there's always this time of forming before new beginnings and spring up, because there are things set in time. We know from times and seasons that Jesus was raised on the day of first fruits, right? There was a timing factor that had to be matured. There was a time when Joseph had to be in prison, working out. He's going to feel like he's going around in circles. Do you think he was tempted to forget what he was born to do? But suddenly the time's right. Pharaoh has a dream. If Pharaoh had just been sitting there one time and the butler says, hey, I got this really cool dude down that in the prison who knows how to interpret dreams, what would Pharaoh have said? Oh, okay. Fine. If I have one, I'll think about it, right? But instead, Pharaoh has these two intense dreams, and nobody can figure it out. So God has allowed this thing to perk because there's a new beginning he's bringing Joseph up into. He's going to bring back to memory everything, not quite everything, but a whole lot. Joseph is suddenly going to be elevated. Now, the whole brothers part of the dream is still nowhere in sight, is it? It's nowhere in sight. But suddenly now, Pharaoh's dream was so intense and so stark and so real and so revelatory, and the fact that nobody else, what are the chances that nobody there on Pharaoh's staff could interpret that? I mean, come on now, how hard would it be to make up an interpretation for that? Okay, you got to know the hand of God was on those guys with like a stupid factor. Okay, you're not getting it, you're not getting it, you're not getting it, you're not getting it right. Oh, we don't know what that means, right? Come on. Almost any, you're a magician, you're one of these sorcerer guys that are around there. So he puts the stupid factor on him, and so the butler says, I know somebody who's really good at this. And they bring Joseph. By the way, he has to get clean. He has to be shaven. He would have been shaven. He would have had the long beard and everything. It's like, nah, I can't do that in front of Pharaoh. He's brought by Pharaoh, and he gives him the interpretation. Suddenly, it all shifts. And Pharaoh promotes him up. And not only that, but he takes a daughter of a priest. And this is where we tie into the 8th tribe, which is Manasseh, the 8th tribe. Before the years of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph by Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. So all this time, all these years in the prison, in Potiphar's service, and he gets a daughter of Potiphera. There's some question as to whether or not that isn't the same person as Potiphar, who was not only a captain of the guard, but a priest. It would have been pretty funny, right, if he gave one of Potiphar's daughters. Would have been... Pharaoh would have figured out, oh, okay, maybe he wasn't in there justly. But here you go. So Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh and said, it is because God has made me forget all my trouble and all my father's households. That's, Manasseh is the 8th tribe. This is the 8th month. So there's a forgetting that has to happen to get you free into what, okay? It's a forgetting about all the trauma that Seabiscuit was under. It's a forgetting that Red Pollard in terms of all the abuse and all the tough times he has to go through. It's a forgetting, it's pulling things forward into a new beginning, And it's 2 factors here. It's forgetting all of my troubles, which were many, and then all my father's household. And the toil, the causing to forget is that Manasseh, that there's something that God has caused me. God has done something. How did God cause that to happen? What was the trigger? What was the trigger? Was it getting elevated before Pharaoh? It wasn't. What was it? It was a son. It wasn't even getting married. It was having an heir. You see, there's a covenant sign in an heir that your family line will continue, right? He had been completely cut off by his family. Do you realize Manasseh is also the representative of one new man? He is the first one new man. Gentile mother, Jewish father. What's very interesting too is it's Joseph who names his son. If you go back and you look at all the other patriarchs, they're all named by the moms. Rachel and Leah name all the sons. But here now, because of this being a covenant sign, and that covenant sign is very important because 8, Noah 8, is there a covenant sign that follows Noah once he comes out of the ark? Rainbow, right? Again, a covenant sign to signal the fact that we're in a new beginning and I'm not going to do what I had to go through before. I'm not going to do it again. This is a breakthrough time. You tracking with this? Or am I being too? Okay. So the trouble here is a very intense word. It means wearisome labor and even vexation. Are the things that have vexed your spirit? Are the things that are vexing your spirit now? Okay. Where God causes you to forget.
Amen.
Okay?
Amen.
causes you to what?
And also to forgive.
Also to forgive, because those are really tied in, right? You have to release it unto the hand of God.
If you don't forgive, you won't forget.
You won't forget. The new beginning of 8 and the name of the 8th tribe, causing to forget, is really pivotal. And it's a covenant sign. There's a covenant sign that's given. I like this guy's face because he is clearly in some anguish, right? I like faces that portray the emotion. I can't believe all, you know, right? Could you imagine you were the favored son. You had the robe. You had the favor. And now your brothers throw you into a pit, talk about killing you, sell you into slavery. You're a good servant. You get thrown into prison on false charges. You prophesy correctly, you interpret dreams, and then you just get forgotten there. I mean, at what point do you go like, well, screw this, I might as well just die? Vexing of the spirit. But Joseph, when he's raised up, and he's given a wife, and then when he has an heir, there's a covenant sign, and he names his child, causing to forget. For God has caused me to forget all my vexation, and not only that, but my father's house. That level of betrayal, that level of having been turned on by other people, that is a particularly bitter pill to swallow. And we've got to be able to get past that. This is a month. Oh, I like a little background music. Okay. So let me just segue to another, because again, remember I said the most significant member of the tribe of Manasseh is Gideon. Let me show you the cycle that he's in. Because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made for themselves the dens, the caves, and the strongholds which are in the mountains. Why? Because whenever Israel had sown, Midianites would come up, also the Amalekites and the people of the east would come up against them. Then they would encamp against them and destroy the produce of the earth as far as Gaza, and leave no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep, nor ox, nor donkey. Do you see this constant, they're running around circles, running in circles. So where do we find our hero then? Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth tree, which was an Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abizite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress in order to what? Hide it from the Midianites. You know, they had him running around so long in circles that he's forgotten who he is. He's forgotten that he's a child of Adonai, of Yahweh, of the great I am. He's so busy just trying to keep what he can. And so God has to send a covenant sign, and an angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." So God gives a covenant sign through the angel, and then he goes on. You know the rest of the story, right? With the fleece and everything. And I mean, there we could spend a week just in that one part. But I love this because he's trying to help him reestablish who he is. He's just threshing wheat in a wine press. He's not even using it for the right reason. The wine press was down, the threshing floor was up so the wind could catch it. He is hidden way down just to try to protect what little he has. He's running in circles trying to hold these things together. He has forgotten what it's like to be a man of valor. And he argues with the angel, right? What kind of greeting is that? Nice of you to show up now. Okay, on and on. So this is Gideon's self-perception. This is the people of Israel's self-perception, forgotten who they are. And the constant running around had stolen what he was born to do. And he needs a Manasseh moment. Do you get that? There's a Manasseh moment when Joseph has a son. Okay, wow. It wasn't enough to serve Pharaoh, get married to a Gentile and have that, but to have a son, boom, covenant moment. Gideon has actually a Manasseh moment with the angel, and he has a number of them because the angel's got to make sure that Gideon gets the way you've been, you can't continue to be. There's something new here. A covenant sign. Now, Jesus shows us that you don't have to be running around in a circle. Was Jesus ever running in a circle? Okay. I love this picture. because it's a barrier. This is a picture of Jesus as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. How determined does that lion look? If you were on the other side of those bars, would you really feel that safe? That lion's staring out like you are lunch. And don't think these bars. So here's the verse that many of you know. We look to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. I mean, that line, just those bars just don't, right? They're there, but it's like, I don't know. I was looking at this picture earlier. It's like, what bars? Yeah. But he endured the shame, despising it, right? Endured the cross, despising the shame, because he knew what was there. He kept hold of that covenant sign. He could see what was there. The Manasseh thing causing him to forget. Do you think that he's now moved through? Do you think Jesus moved through that? Do you think the restoration of Peter, he restored him? Do you think there was a bitterness in Jesus about Peter denying him? It was just restored. It was refreshed. And so the question is that if this is the life of Joseph, then this is it. What is this for you? What's the uptick? For Joseph, this was Manasseh. So what will cause you to forget? That's my actual question. I'm not looking for an answer from you, but I do want you to ask that of God. Lord, what's my Manasseh moment? What will it take? Now, some of you were in that when we were worshiping, correct or not? What happens when you worship?
God is with you.
Okay. Where do you get a shift in your focus? Are you aware that you are more than just a current being? You're aware that you are a spiritual being in a temporary shell, right? And they are connected, and you function in that way, but ultimately you have more, and you connect into that more in the midst of worship, right? Some of you are going all week long and only coming here for the kind of worship time, and it just ain't enough. You're running around in circles the rest of the time, coming here thinking it's going to get your train fixed, and it ain't. It's still going to roll off the rails. Go.
Turn your eyes upon Jesus,
Turn your eyes, look full in his wonderful face.
and the things in the world will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace.
Amen. I love this NIV version of this verse. I run in the path of your commands, for you have set my heart free. I want you to think back to that story with Seabiscuit, right? And he said, he's forgotten how to be a horse. He has to remember what it is. And she says, how do you do that? What do they do to remind him? They put him on a path where there's tremendous freedom, where there's just the joy of just running, right? So here is my question to you. What is the path for you that God needs to set you on? I'm really serious on this. How many of you can identify with Seabiscuit, having been run around, that you've forgotten what it's like to really be a child of the King, to really be free? Because it just feels like you're going around and around. It's like on a treadmill. Okay, here's the question. What just enlightens your heart? What would it be? How can God speak that into you in a Manasseh moment? I tell you, I woke up this morning with a very interesting dream. It was a guy that I had worked with years ago. There'd been some real stress and tension. This person had to leave the company. I think in part I got blamed for it and everything, and I've tried to loop back and make sure everything was correct on my side, if I needed to apologize for anything. But this morning I had a dream, and it's just the two of us are in this dream, and it's so pleasant and so amiable. It's just, I don't know the best word. We were just as friends, and there was just, I woke up and there was just a joy in me over seeing him. It was kind of a Manasseh moment. I went, Lord, I don't know what happened. Did this person suddenly go and forgive me during the night or something? Or are you trying to speak this encouragement about a past work situation I have? What are you doing? But have you had a dream like that where you just wake up and you're like, wow. And this was someone that I felt there was some tension with. So it just wasn't there. In the dream, I just liked this person. He liked me. We were just good friends. And it just felt so at ease. And I went, wow, okay. I woke up with that this morning. As I'm preparing this word on Manasseh, causes me to forget. You know, if you're around somebody and you've got something sideways on them, what does it do? How does it inhibit how you are? Does it affect you? Oh, sure. Come on, you like walk on eggshells. You know, you don't want to do this. You don't want to see this person or whatever. God wants us on this path. You've got to see again that Seabiscuit when he just looses it. And he's just racing, you know. And there's just a tremendous sense of joy in him and freedom. That's the Manasseh moment. I don't know what that will be for you. There's a covenant sign involved. I can tell you that. It may be a check that you weren't expecting. It may be a phone call that you didn't think. A relationship connects. Something there. It'll be a Bible verse that will just speak to you in the midst of it. It'll be someone coming and saying something that you just left field had not expected. But I need to encourage you, there's a season now for new beginning. I want you to watch for it. We're in a year about new beginning, but we're in an 8th month when that flavor gets really, really strong. He's so beat up, it's hard to see what he's like. They got him so screwed up running in circles, he's forgotten what he was born to do.
Stephen, I just felt impressed a couple of times to saying that. Just even with myself, one of the things that I'm learning at this age is that some of the things wasn't that I forgot. It was just I never knew. I literally was never trained and knew the realities of who God said I was in the beginning. And I'm literally asking him now, God, who am I? Who was I designed to be, not who I was formed to be,
right,
in the context of the things that happened to me throughout my life. I thought I was introverted all this time. I thought I was really shy, and God's not or either he's changing all that, he's adjusting all that. But I've really had to go back and say, how did I get the perception of myself that I have and the way that I was formed? And God, what is it really that you designed me to be? So I'm asking him at 50 years old, who am I? Who am I to you, and what's your heart for me? And break off things that were formed on me or that formed me to be the way that I was. It was never his heart and intention. Yep. But I realized even still at this age, there are things that I perceived of myself that weren't really me, but were environmentally or socially, yep, or whatever.
Yep.
So I look at that and I think, this poor horse, I don't know that I've seen the movie, but he may not have forgotten. You don't forget you can only forget what you once previously knew.
Yep.
So,
well, what he's trying to say, though, by that, forgotten what he was born to do.
Right.
You're right.
Okay.
Is that because he got so trained out of it, right? Because he liked to lolly around, he liked to eat her out. He wasn't fierce. One thing you'll see about them as you watch this movie is he turns out to be a fierce competitor. In fact, part of how they learn to train him is to wait till he sees another horse in the eye. And when he sees the horse in the eye, then he lights up. And they talk about it, and he'll give you a whole nother gear, And suddenly this horse just propels. And so here, he just needs to learn how to be my son again. I'm just personalizing this. But Debbie, it's right. There's a joy in when Seabiscuit hits it that you want to capture that in you. You want to go, okay, God, what's the Manasseh moment that I need so that, boom. Because see, it's in forgetting all that stuff that try to condition you and shut you down, and then connecting with your heart with what is really true. I run in the paths of his command because he has set my heart free. And guys, I just think this is so true about the body of Christ, that we have so bought into so many lies about what we aren't, and a lot of that is that we weren't ever trained. We didn't know. You know what? It's really not that complicated. All you got to do is go back in here and look at what happened to the early followers of Jesus, because the same things are supposed to be happening today. You meet connected in homes, you share the body and the blood, you pray for the sick, you raise the dead, you deal with the demonic. and you change a whole nation while you're being persecuted. I love it, you know, after my namesake Stephen is stoned to death, right? The great persecution breaks out, and they all fled Jerusalem except the apostles. The designated leaders stay in Jerusalem, everybody else scatters, and the church grows leaps and bounds. Because that's what life does. That's what the true heart does. And that's what the church just hasn't been able to move in. So we forget what stood against us so we can stop forgetting who we are. That's the trigger point for a new beginning. But I want you to be going, Lord, what's really in my heart? What have you given me to do? How can I move fully in that? What's the covenant sign? What's the Manasseh moment? You're trying to drop in, you're trying to drop in, you're trying to drop in. I have to go and pray into this dream so that I know if there's a direction or something I'm supposed to do with it. Was it just an encouragement to me about freedom from something old, or was there an action involved? And ultimately what this does is gets us to a point where we can help each other. And with that, I've got one more scene for you. Now this is near the end of the movie, and several things have happened. Red Pollard had fallen off a horse and broken his leg so badly they were afraid that if he ever rode again, he could never walk. Seabiscuit greatly hurt his leg, ripped out a tendon, and the vet had even wanted to put him down. They've now come back, and they're now in one final race. But Seabiscuit isn't doing so well. And you're going to see one other character, which is a jockey who rode Seabiscuit during the time when Red Pollard was laid up and rode him on a couple of races. He's in this race, and he does something to come back and help.
Right, Johnny. Come on, Pops. Go on with it, Johnny. Go on.
You know, everybody thinks we found this broken down horse and fixed him. But we didn't. He fixed us. Every one of us. And I guess in a way, we kind of fixed each other too.
So that's what we have to do with each other, right? You have to see the glory and call it out. And you know, this story has those bumps. The cycles start again, right? There's got to be yet another. But they stand with each other through that. They call each other up to that new beginning, and they're willing to take risks. So what's your Manasseh moment? And what has he set before you in your heart to really run in if you just had the freedom? We can't keep holding each other back, folks. We can't hold. I'm sorry, most of the institutional church is just too afraid of what you will be. Okay? I love you enough just to set you free. It's why we don't hold you here. You come in for whatever time. We want to support and encourage you to be the brilliance that you are. Okay? The freedom. It's not about control. It's creating an environment of honor and freedom so you can really be that kind of runner, whatever that is. It may not be here. Doesn't matter. But we need that glory, and the church needs to move in that, because the church has to go back to be the way that we were supposed to be. That's our core DNA. But we've gotten so busy minding each other's business around what is and isn't right or politically correct or whatever. Or sometimes just being too darn political. I'm sorry, the early church wasn't political. It didn't try to make changes from the top. It was too busy being Jesus around everywhere else till the whole empire had to submit. Okay? Father, I want to call out now the Manasseh moment for each person here and each person who's watching this replay. Lord, help them to attend to the covenant sign that you will give to say, here marks the new beginning. Here is what you are. Here is the glory I've set before you. Lord, Jesus was like that lion looking at those bars. Those bars would have just melted under his gaze, but he submitted for a time because he knew they were temporary. Lord, help us for the joy set before us to endure and then break into that new beginning. We receive that, Lord, that we're in an 8th month. We're in that time. Gideon had a new beginning. Joseph has a new beginning. Noah walks in a new beginning. We just lay hold and say, we will be in a new beginning. We will see our hearts restored, so we'll do what we were born to do. And we will remember, perhaps in a whole new way, or understand in a whole new way, what you have set within us, that the angels are waiting to see, that creation is longing for the revelations of the sons and the daughters of God, to say, here I am, I'm reflecting his glory, his purpose, his mission. Here I am. Send me, Lord. Father, I seal this word now that it can't be stolen, but rather it will find good, deep, rich soil, that the images and the scriptures will percolate until they break forward and new freedom is found for the glory of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.